Welcome to Drinks with Dan. Today I want to talk about deciphering wine labels. Let's get started. Okay, so it's and we're stuck inside or in the backyard for the most part. And I mean, it was hard enough trying to buy wine at the grocery store or a wine shop, but now we're having to buy it from behind a computer screen. And it's like, I mean, who do you trust? You trust Mike giving it 1 star, Wine Spectator getting 86 points, Susie giving it 5 stars? Here's a crazy idea. How about you trust yourself? You shouldn't be buying on someone else's recommendation. So I'm going to try to break down some wine labels and give you a better idea of what you're buying. Welcome to Wine O'Clock. This is where I give my off-the-cuff opinion about different wines, and it may or may not get personal. So let's take a look at this gem as a prime example. So if we go through our acronym, we have Oak Creek being the producer, California being the place, Cabernet Sauvignon being the varietal, and 2017 being the vintage. All in all, this is a confusing label because Oak Creek, right off the bat, doesn't sound like a producer. It sounds like a place. So you're combining this Oak Creek, California as being this really nice place in Napa Valley or some prestigious wine region like that, and so it doesn't quite cross your mind that Oak Creek is actually a producer and not a place. But at first I didn't know that, and neither would anyone else. So you have to do a little bit of research in Google to find out that Oak Creek is not a place in California. It is just a fancy name to make you think it is a place. And so that is how a wine label such as this one is super deceptive and makes you think it's a fancy bottle when in fact it's nothing like that. So a quick Google search can help you learn a lot about a producer. So by Googling, I found, of course, there is not a place called Oak Creek, California. There's not even an Oak Creek cellar homepage. It doesn't even exist anywhere. The most helpful thing I could find was a Vivino review from a man named Heath, and he said, oh, the wine was good. It had subtle notes of blackberry. Great, thanks so much. We solved the riddle of the Oak Creek, California Cabernet. So you have to take some of this information with a grain of salt. The best thing that you can do is find a bottle that is very specifically labeled. The devil is in the details. The more specificity a bottle has, the higher quality it's going to be. So if we look at this, Oak Creek being the name of the producer, California being the place. So what's wrong? California makes great wine. How come we don't have a good bottle on our hands? Well, in this sense, California is a giant place. California is bigger than most European countries, and most wine that you're buying from Europe is coming from a region within one of these countries. And so if you look at California, this is a giant territory and where you can get your grapes from. So what you want is to find the label that has more specificity. So unfortunately, the reality of not being able to find a website talking about this producer, in this case Oak Creek Cellars, if you look on the back it'll have a little more details that Oak Creek is not a place, it's actually a name of a company called Oak Creek Cellars. But this producer doesn't even have a website, which is a huge red flag. Most wine companies, if you look up the name of the producer, like Robert Mondavi as a prime example, you can find this big website whose estate, all the different wines he produces. You can scroll through all the different inventory he's done. In this case, Oak Creek Cellars, I couldn't even find a home page for them. And the reality of this is that this is a off-brand of one of these giant conglomerates. Constellation, E.J. Gallo is just one of these that are pumping out an assembly line of wines that are being sourced all over California, probably machine harvested from the cheapest fruit they could possibly find, making gallons and gallons and gallons of wine. This is in essence, solving the mystery of Oak Creek, California Cabernet Sauvignon. And this is so typical of all of these cheaper bottles. If your wine is terrible, invest in marketing. Thanks, capitalism. So the reality being that this is a mediocre bottle of wine. However, how many ways you want to slice it, California is a big place You are not going to find the level of specificity to deem a higher quality bottle. Now, if this was Oak Creek Cellars Napa Cabernet Sauvignon, that would be way more specific than California, and then you would have deemed this a little higher quality, and this would definitely not sell for $5.99. So you have to think a little more critically when you're buying a bottle and try to find a more specific region. Map it, look at the homepage of the producer, learn a little bit more about the practices on the back label. Sometimes they will talk more about it. This back label just gives you a bunch of hullabaloo on stuff that you don't care about, and that's exactly how the wine tastes. So you want your wine to say Napa Valley or Central Coast or Sonoma County or something like that, because then you have some specifics and you know the consumer at least knows generally where this wine is coming from and can make an educated guess as to if they really want to spend the X amount of dollars on this bottle. And of course, if you're trying to find a budget buy, it may not occur to you to care that much. However, if you have a wine that's $1 apart and one says California and one says Sonoma County, it's much safer to go with the Sonoma County because the acreage there is so much smaller than the acreage in California as a whole. And so that's what you want to look out for. And a really sad statistic is that most of your wine at the grocery store is made by 3 producers, and they are just off-branding these names to a bunch of other people, but the quality of the wine is pretty bottom of the barrel when it comes to what you're paying for. Because in order to stack these shelves at every liquor store, every grocery store, every blah blah across the country, you have to just do gallons and gallons and gallons of wine, and your quality control is through the floor terrible because you can't do that. The real estate in California is so expensive. Imagine buying a vineyard and you have, 100 acres of vines. You can't possibly charge $5 a bottle for that. You have to up that quality. And so some of these bigger producers, they're just buying handfuls here, 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 here. And that's how they're able to create this giant bulk vats of wine, which they just bottle with soulless intent and pump into your bottle and put it on your supermarket. And that's what you're buying. And now your impression of wine is absolute trash. And I don't blame you.